I'm Molly Heffernan, Director of Marketing at the Tory Burch Foundation, and today's session is a special partnership between the Tory Burch Foundation and the United States Department of Commerce. We are grateful to have the United States Patent and Trademark Office here to lead an engaging session on intellectual property and why IP protection is big for business. A bit about how today will work. We're going to begin with a presentation on IP fundamentals, then have a fireside chat with Undersecretary of Commerce and USPTO Director, Kathy Vidal. And in that conversation, we're going to discuss all the ways you can leverage the resources from the US Patent and Trademark Office. Then a Q&A session to answer as many questions as we can about IP and how to protect and position your business. So throughout today, please use the Q&A box to submit your questions. We don't want to miss them. That chat moves really quickly, so please use the Q&A box for your questions and use the chat for all of the good community building energy. Connect with each other, share more about your business, and keep the vibes high. So with that, I would love to introduce our first guest, Regional Outreach Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office's Eastern Regional Office, Elizabeth Doherty. Elizabeth has served over 25 years with the USPTO and has a rich background in helping small businesses and entrepreneurs. Elizabeth began her career as a patent examiner, has a law degree from Catholic University, and has served in various leadership roles throughout her tenure, guiding policy and programmatic advancement. So Elizabeth, welcome, and I am going to turn it to you today to walk us through a full IP 101.
Molly, thank you so very, very much for that kind and warm welcome. And thank you to you and your entire team there at the Tory Burch Foundation for the beautiful work that you do for women entrepreneurs. It is our pleasure as the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office to engage with you and your audience today and to share some really critical information about the role and importance of intellectual property. So let me add my words of welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and happy holidays to all in attendance today. Welcome to our conversation. Today, I want to start by congratulating each and every one of you for giving yourself the gift of education, truly a gift that continues to give. I hope that you're going to enjoy this gift, apply this gift, and share this gift, because again, it is a gift that keeps on giving. Today, our conversation is going to be focused on intellectual property. Intellectual property is the world around us. It is what sets forth the world as we know it through patented products, trademark registered goods and services. We wouldn't recognize our lives without those two things. IP is the language of business, and it is the language of how to protect your creativity, your invention, and your innovation. IP is the foundation of business. It provides value to a business, bringing both making your business attractive to investors and buyers. We can all think of that show Shark Tank, and invariably, what do the sharks ask anyone coming before them? So let's call it out now. Intellectual property should be a part of your business strategy, and it should be a part of your business strategy from the very beginning, that very kernel of an idea that you have as you begin to grow your business. So let's be sure that we keep IP as part of your business strategy from the very onset. And we're going to talk about exactly how to do that today. So let's go ahead and get this party started. And I'm going to jump into some slides that I'd like to share with you today. All right, so I'm assuming that everyone is seeing these slides, and keep in mind, these slides will be provided to you, so not to worry. You don't need to screenshot each and every one of them, but if you want to take notes, then certainly do so along the way. Oh, again, we are the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office that are with you today. We are America's innovation agency. We federally register U.S. trademarks, and we issue U.S. patents. But as we start our conversation today on growing your intellectual property knowledge and know-how, I want to first introduce you to three remarkable women, Kavita Shukla, Kim Meckwood, and Sita Lash. going to ask you, what do you think these women all have in common? Now, if you were to say they're all beautiful, you got that right. But more pertinent to our conversation today is the fact that they have each created an intellectual property portfolio that they are using to grow their business. They have created intellectual property, they have protected intellectual property, and they are using it in their business. Intellectual property is their fight song. It is both a sword and a shield, which they are using to protect their creativity and investment. They are also using it to ward off and protect themselves from those who may seek to copy or to infringe. So whether it's Kavita Shukla and her business of fresh paper, addressing food waste, a global problem, Kim Meckwood, who invented the click and carry, is seen on season 7 of Shark Tank, who sought to address a problem of carrying multiple items. Or Sita Lash, who was addressing the problem of how to care for natural hair. These women, that's right, they were all the mothers of invention because we know necessity is the mother of invention, and women are remarkable problem solvers. We are natural problem solvers, and we are remarkable at doing it. So let's talk about each one of these women in the respect that they each used intellectual property and continue to do so in the work that they do today. So let's talk very briefly about what is the US Patent and Trademark Office. You may or may not have heard of us. I oftentimes say we are the best kept secret in the federal government, but we do remarkable work. We are part of the US Department of Commerce. And in fact, you're going to hear from the Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, today. We are one of the oldest, if not the oldest agency in the federal government, beginning our work in 1790 with the issuance of the first patent. Today, we stand at over 13,000 employees strong, and these are across the nation, many of them teleworking, perhaps in your own community. We receive US patent applications and issue over 350,000 patents each and every year, and have trademark examining attorneys who register federally registered trademarks for businesses. So just to put you on the map, I'll also let you know that we are headquartered in Alexandria, Virginia, but we have regional offices in Detroit, Denver, Dallas, and San Jose. These regional offices are community centers that engage in the regions they're located in, providing programming, webinars, in-person assistance, and love to engage with you. I think the director is going to share some very special news in her remarks today about some expansion of this footprint across America. I want to be sure to also call out to you one of our most remarkable resources and something which we continue to build and grow, and that's our Patent and Trademark Resource Center network. It's a network of over 80 libraries located nationwide in public libraries, most often college or universities, where there is one or more librarian who is trained and gifted in helping you to conduct a high-quality patent or trademark search. Now, are you required by law to conduct a patent or trademark search when applying for a patent or trademark? The simple answer is no. However, we would encourage you to do so because maybe your idea is just so good, someone's already thought of it. So why not save yourself the headache, the heartache, and the financial outlay by knowing it through a high-quality patent or trademark search? So let's get into the nitty-gritty of intellectual property. As I mentioned when I spoke about Kavita, Kim, and Sita, they each created an intellectual property portfolio. Now, what does that mean? That means that these remarkable entrepreneurs used multiple forms of intellectual property to create a portfolio of intellectual property. These various forms of intellectual property protecting very different things, yet playing well together to infuse their company with value. Now, when you say IP portfolio, I'd like to analogize it a little bit to a salad. Who has a salad that's just lettuce? No, we love a salad that's got all of those different interesting bits, whether it's nuts, fruits, extra vegetables, dressing, or cheese. It all blends together to add texture, to enhance those additional features, add upon one another. And that's exactly what a intellectual property portfolio can do. The slide you're seeing now reflects the fact that there are four basic types of intellectual property, all of which we're going to touch on very, very quickly today: patents, trademarks, copyrights, and trade secrets. As I said, they each protect something very different. They exist for very different durations, but can all work together in an intellectual property portfolio. You're going to see in our slide set at the very end a slide that's similar to this, but that provides additional information about each and every one of these. I know we're just going to whet your appetite for intellectual property today because our time together is very limited, but let's go ahead and jump into each of these forms of intellectual property. Let's start with patents, perhaps my favorite form of intellectual property, because as Molly said, I started my career as a US patent examiner. You saw from a previous slide that we have over 8,000 trained engineers and scientists who are doing the work of patent examining every day of the year. These individuals come to us from remarkable backgrounds in technology and science, engineering, and are gifted public servants who are serving their country in reviewing US patent applications. So, what is a patent? A patent is what protects what we think of as inventions. So, whether that is a new pharmaceutical or a new cellular communication device, it is likely covered by one or multiple forms of patent. Now, something that you're not going to see on the slide, but it is important as a takeaway, is that there are three types of patents: utility, design, and plant. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you walk away today, knowing that there is something called a US patent. The different types of patent protect very different things. The utility patent protecting what we think of as inventions. Again, those commercially viable products, whether it's a chemical composition or an article of manufacture, utility patent. Design patents protect the ornamental appearance of an article of manufacture, and plant patents, of course, the name speaks for itself. Patents are as old as the nation itself. Again, we issued the first patent in 1790 and have now issued over 11 million patents and are quickly closing in on patent number 12 million. Perhaps it will be issued to one of you. Patents grant they grant the patent owner the right to exclude others. Important to note, excluding others. And this is written into the very Constitution: from making, using, and selling, offering for sale the claimed invention without your permission, the owner, without your permission, and it exists for a limited period of time. Those utility patents that I mentioned are good for 20 years from the date of filing. Design patents are good for 15 years from the date of issuance. Patents, like other forms of intellectual property, are territorial and, as we said, protect a new and useful process, machine, manufacture, composition of matter, or improvement thereof. Ladies, I'd love to also give a particular shout out to you today because we need you. As I mentioned, we've issued over 11 million patents. Only 12% of patents have a named female inventor on that patent. Ladies, that's far too few of you. Women, we know, make up 50% of the population, yet why are we only reflected on 12% of US patents? Let's be the change that we want to see. So, what are trademarks? Trademarks, federally registered by the US Patent and Trademark Office, are another valuable form of intellectual property. Trademarks are the word, phrase, symbol, or design, and there's some other non-traditional types of trademarks I'll mention quickly too, that serve as the identifier of the source of goods or services. A service mark, like a trademark, serves as the same but distinguishes the source of a service. Trademarks are incredibly valuable in part because of their duration. They can last forever as long as the mark is registered, continually used in commerce, and renewed with the US Patent and Trademark Office on a 10-year period. These trademarks serve as the indicator of source in goods or services, and anecdotally, they say that we engage on any given day with 1,500 trademarks. Now, how do we engage with trademarks? Well, certainly by looking at the world around us. Trademarks, again, help us in making our purchasing choices. They help quiet the noise of the commercial marketplace by letting us know which goods and services that we are looking for. We build up brand loyalty as a producer of a commercial product or of a service by having our trademark and having our trademark become recognized by the buying public. So trademarks serve a benefit to both the commercial producer as well as the buying public. These trademarks, and I promised you I'd mention some non-traditional trademarks as well, can also include sounds, scents, and colors. You may be able to think of a few of those. I'll throw out a particular example that I love. How many of us have ever opened a jar of Play-Doh? You'd know it even with your eyes are closed. The scent of Play-Doh is a trademark. Again, the source of goods and services. If we were to look in the bags that we have with us today, the things on our desk, we would see many indicators of the source of goods and services. And in fact, here's some examples today. As we said, trademarks can be words, they can be designs, they can be combinations of words and designs, or they can be a wide variety of other things that serve as the indicator of the source of goods or services. Copyrights are extensive. Copyrights are the legal protection for original works of authorship, including literary, dramatic, musical, artistic, and certain other intellectual works, such as logos, product design, packaging, advertising, promotional materials, instructional materials, educational materials, software source code, website content. Copyrights are not issued by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. They are handled by the U.S. Copyright Office, which is a part of the Library of Congress. However, we work closely with our federal partners, and we also help advise the administration on copyright policy. Just to give you another quick teaching example of a wonderful woman who's done a great deal with creating her intellectual property portfolio, let me tell you about a fan favorite in my world, and that's Marissa Strang. Marissa Strang, when she was 9 years old and in the 3rd grade, participated in an invention competition. Marissa had the job of washing the family dog. So, what happens when we wash the dog? The dog is wet, the dog runs through the house and gets everything wet. So, necessity being the mother of invention, Marissa wanted a better way to dry the dog after she washed it. She invented nothing short of the Puff and Fluff, which is now sold on the internet in stores in South Florida. She received a U.S. patent on her invention, the first part of her IP portfolio. She trademarked her product with the name Puff and Fluff, which still exists today. And she has a copyrighted website. So just an example of how one very young individual created an IP portfolio that still exists today, even as Marissa is now in college. So still enjoying the benefit of her intellectual property. Last but not least, in looking at the 4 different types of intellectual property protection, let's touch on trade secrets. Now, trade secrets are not addressed by the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. They're generally handled by contract law between an employer and an employee, and also under the Uniform Trade Secrets Act. Trade secrets, like copyrights, protect a wide array of things, a wide array of information that provide value to a business and provide an economic advantage and must be kept secret. So as you can imagine, the challenge in having a trade secret is taking the requisite steps to maintain the information as a secret. Commonly, when we think of trade secrets, we think of things such as the recipe for KFC chicken. What makes that chicken just so good? We don't know, because they've been able to maintain their recipe as a secret. How about the Google search algorithm? How is it that we can put in a few key search words and we get some pretty pertinent results for the most part? Well, we don't know, because Google has maintained their search algorithm as a secret. If anyone's ever visited the Coca-Cola headquarters in Atlanta, Georgia, you'll see a vault there that Coca-Cola says the recipe for Coca-Cola is in that vault. So as a business owner, if you choose to keep something as a trade secret, keep in mind you must take affirmative steps to maintain the secrecy of that information, whether it's dividing up the information so no one employee has all of the information, keeping it in a locked drawer, keeping it under lock and key, keeping it in some type of a data file with a password protection. Make sure that you take the requisite steps. So as I promised, here is our summary slide, which provides you with some of the information that I've shared with you in our rapid run through intellectual property today. So let's go over these again very, very quickly. Patents, there are 4 basic types. You will see that we have not called out the plant patents here. It is one of our smallest areas of filings, although very dramatic. We all enjoy the benefit, particularly during the holidays, as most poinsettia plants are plant patent protected. But of course, keep in mind that majority of patents are utility patents and design patents. As I said, we've issued over 11 million utility patents. We just issued design patent number 1 million to a remarkable woman entrepreneur in Texas for a a beauty device, a comb device that also contained a compartment for maintaining material to be applied to one's head when doing some beauty product treatment. So as we know, utility patents protect any new useful process, machine, manufacture, or composition thereof, whether it's a bicycle, a toothbrush, or a new pharmaceutical. Design patents, which play very well with utility patents, protect the new, original, and ornamental design of an article of manufacture. Anecdotally, I was once told that the Apple iPhone has over 75,000 patented technologies in it. Now, I can't speak to the veracity of that statement, but I think it's entirely possible. There's a lot of tech in an Apple iPhone. Trade secrets, as I know, protect business-related information that is kept secret. Now, keep in mind, if you choose to go the route of trade secret, once the secret is broken, that information is known to everyone. Copyrights protect those original works of authorship placed in a fixed intangible medium. So, in other words, one must record the artistic work, whether it's sculpture being done in stone or plaster of Paris, or whether it's a music recording being placed on music paper or being recorded in some type of recording medium. Your original work of authorship must be placed in a tangible medium for it to secure that copyright. Now, we won't go into it today, but copyrights are self-authenticating, but you, like with trademarks, get the opportunity to avail yourself of additional protections by registering your copyright with the U.S. Copyright Office and federally registering your U.S. trademark. So keep in mind there are requirements in applying for each one of these types of intellectual property, with, of course, the exception of trade secrets. But they each have a very different duration and protect very different things. So with that, I think I am probably close to my time. I am going to stop sharing, but if I am not out of time, I will be happy to continue to talk, but I'm going to transition back up. There goes my timer right there. So I think I am indeed out of time.
But we are going to have you back in a little bit to go through all of the different questions that have come in. So Elizabeth, thank you so much for that helpful grounding in everything IP. I think we all have a good lay of the land to start. So for folks who are in the chat and in the Q&A box, put your questions in the Q&A box, and we're going to revisit Q&A later in today's session. But we are going to launch into a fireside discussion after we watch a brief video from United States Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo.
Hi, I'm Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo. Here at the Commerce Department, we are focused on creating opportunity and prosperity for all Americans, and that includes women. Investing in women's economic success as workers, entrepreneurs, innovators, and business leaders is essential to America's prosperity. It's our job in the federal government, the private sector, and the nonprofit sector to ensure that everyone has access to entrepreneurial opportunities, including women and people of color. To meet this challenge, I'm joining Kathy Vidal, the fabulous Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, to launch the Women's Entrepreneurship, or WE Initiative. The WE Initiative builds on the USPTO's successful Women's Entrepreneurship Symposium with a community-focused, creative approach to lift up women and tap their potential to meaningfully increase equity, job creation, and economic prosperity. This website is designed to answer many of the key questions we're hearing from women entrepreneurs. I encourage you to explore the resources available here, including information on protecting innovations and creations, funding resources, government trainings and events, and networking and mentoring opportunities. Women entrepreneurs are an engine of America's economy and a crucial driver of employment and prosperity across our communities. Our goal is to make meaningful progress in assisting women entrepreneurs, including by leveraging their intellectual property. Please visit this site often for updates, helpful testimonials, tips from successful women business owners, and more women's entrepreneurial news. We have so much work ahead of us, but together we can do it.
Everyone, we are just so excited. We have an incredible guest today. So I'd like you all to give a warm welcome in the chat to Director Kathy Vidal, the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property and Director of the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted to be here.
Before we dive in, I'd love to give everyone tuning in today just a bit of background on you and just how entrepreneurial you've been throughout your career, if you don't mind.
Of course.
So, Director Vidal, you have been entrepreneurial in every right. You grew up in a military family that lived all over the world, that valued resilience and education throughout your entire life. And I think those are certainly things that every entrepreneur here can relate to, that resilience, that passion for learning. You also began your career early and were an inventor at GE, coming up with ideas from a young age, then went on to earn your JD at University of Pennsylvania, and then have worked on intellectual property with some of the most competitive firms in Silicon Valley, the front lines of entrepreneurship, as some would say. And now you are responsible for fostering United States innovation, creativity, and entrepreneurship. Those are three words that just make us all have chills because it's what the community tuning in does every day. So thank you for the work you do. And we are honored to have you here. And I know we have a very lively discussion up ahead. So if you're okay, I'd love to jump right in.
I would love that. And I would just add to what I have done is I've also invested in startups, been a board on a startup. So I know the journey. I was with Kara, and you heard from Kara earlier, the founder of Hint Water. I was with her on her journey as she moved forward. So I know what people are going through and just really want to help in any way I can.
Well, that's amazing. And I think it really relates to this first question that we had for you, because Elizabeth just gave us a great IP 101, but even in looking at the Q&A box and knowing the questions we get asked from founders daily, there is this idea or concern that small businesses don't have anything protectable, so to speak. What would you say to myth bust that for everyone?
So absolutely every business has something protectable. So it's the opposite. And I love the way Liz described all the different forms of intellectual property that are out there, because we knew that people were struggling with trying to figure out what is protectable. We actually created in the last year an IP or intellectual property identifier. So there's now a tool that you can go on our website and use, and you can answer questions about your business and determine what it is that you have that's protectable. But I'll just give you one example on that. So everybody has a trademark, right? Unless you're stealth. If you're stealth, maybe you don't have one yet, but maybe you're thinking about one you may want to use when you come out from being stealth. But anybody who's selling anything has at least a trademark in terms of what their brand is. They may be thinking about how they're going to package what it is they have. That's trademarkable. There's trademarks everywhere in what people have. So I really encourage people to use our IP identifier to talk to folks and figure out what it is that they do have that's protectable.
That's amazing. And I know that the team, we are going to send out a link to a wealth of resources, and the IP identifier is one of those. So check your inboxes later so that you can use that tool. We also just heard Secretary Raimondo describe the Women Entrepreneurship Program, and you yourself have spent your career uplifting women entrepreneurs and innovation. So tell us more about WE under your leadership and the impetus for starting and establishing that program.
Well, and thanks for that question. So I will say that the secretary and I both have a background in startups and investment and in supporting women. And when Liz asked that question, when she showed the three women, Kavita, Sita, and Kim, and said, what do they have in common? It's not just that they have IP in common. These are women who want to give back. They want to share their experiences. And we know there are networks of women like that everywhere. And so what the secretary and I did was we thought, how can we create something bigger so that we're not repeating the resources that are out there, but we're helping to bring it together, and we're helping to tie in intellectual property so that more women can get US patents, so that we can protect more businesses and women can be more successful in their businesses. So as the secretary and I talked about that and talked about the fact that not only are women not getting patents, they're not getting the funding that men are. I mean, the funding from venture capitals is about 2%. It's very, very low, even though women are the largest group of growing entrepreneurs. So we wanted to make sure to support everybody on their journey and to make sure they're getting the right support at the right time. So that was the impetus. And when we thought about that, we thought, what is it that entrepreneurs really need to get started? So one, clearly, is funding. Right? You need money. So we recognize that. So part of the entrepreneurship initiative is to get out there and teach women how to pitch for the money, where the resources are, both in government, outside of government. They also need mentors. I mean, if you look at all the questions that are coming in, you need a network. You need mentors that you can reach out to say, hey, I've got this question. And then the last one is really intellectual property, which to me, intellectual property is also beyond everything Liz said. It's a democratizer. You come in and you say, I own this. Nobody's going to care whether you're a man with 1,500 companies or a woman who's just starting out. It's a democratizer. So making sure that that women are understanding that early, that they're getting access to the IP tools, skills, no-cost lawyers that are provided. They're doing all of that early to make sure they're protected is also part of our strategy.
It's exciting to hear, and I just hear so many words that ring true to our community. It's access to funding, access to community, and that trust, right?
Yes.
To set you up for success. On success, what kinds of success have you seen in the early traction of the program?
Oh, it's been phenomenal. I have to tell this one story about Ruth Young, so this is a woman who, before she was exposed to the USPTO, she got into a car accident. She tells a story herself. So she got into a car accident, she lost her job, and she started cleaning hotel rooms. And when she was cleaning hotel rooms, she realized how much time and effort it took to change the bed sheets. And so she created neat sheets, so a new way of a new sheeting system, so that it's much more quick to exchange the bed sheets. So, but as part of that, she got connected to the USPTO somehow and started attending our programs. And through all the free programming that we offered, it incentivized her to get her patents, to make sure she was protecting what she's doing, because as soon as you get successful like she is now, you're going to be selling on the internet and somebody's going to copy you. And obviously the Tory Burch Foundation knows this more than anything, with the great products that Tory Burch has and how they've been copied as soon as they've been sold on the internet. That really gave her the tools to have a really successful company. And I will say, my favorite story is the second women entrepreneurship event that we had. She actually drove from San Diego to Phoenix to come show me her 3 patents. But more than that, she got a flat tire on the way. She stopped into 2 towns to change it, realized she'd miss us if she waited to change her tire. So she drove on the flat tire the rest of the way. So
That's commitment.
This is persistence. But I mean, there's so many stories like that where we'll go in, we'll talk to an audience, and we'll hear right after, wow, I had something and all I had to do was get the right information. I filed for a patent the next day. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. And so how can we have so many entrepreneurs on today, how can
Yes.
they take advantage of the WE resources?
So thank you for asking that. So first of all, I will say that part of the reason why the resources are so impactful is we're doing things like teaming with the Tory Burch Foundation and teaming with people who understand this at the highest levels across the entire country. So we're bringing the people who help the best people in the country to you, which is phenomenal. So we do have a website that contains all the past videos and presentations like this. Great to go through those just to get people's ideas. I mean, even little ideas. I remember when Kara Golden was on she actually came to our inauguration event and our inaugural event. And, she was giving advice, like even simple things, like when you go to pitch for money and the person says no, ask who else might be interested. I mean, just little tips that that people could use. Everything from that to where you can find funding sources to, to free sources to protect your intellectual property, free lawyers. So I would say go online. If you go into any search tool and type in USPTO Women's Entrepreneurship, you can find it readily. It's under uspto.gov/initiatives. I'm sure you'll be providing the link. You can email we@uspto.gov. I would encourage people that while you're thinking about this now, just sign up for our emails, because they will alert you to everything that's going on, all the opportunities coming up.
Amazing. Well, I'd love to, knowing that that resources exist is incredible. And I think I'd love to tap into some of your background and expertise, since everyone here is listening and ready for your advice. So from your experience and just working with so many founders, what kind of link do you see between the protections and ultimately that business success that we all want to achieve?
It's huge. I have some stats I want to provide just to give you an example. So a startup's first patent, so this is just getting your first patent, it increases their employee growth by 36% over 5 years. Ooh. For companies protecting their trademarks, their employment is 80% higher and revenue is 100% higher after 5 years, which is more than twice that of a business who does not protect it. I could go on and on. I have all kinds of stats. I will tell you at a high level that if you want to get funding, you need to protect your IP. That IP is also part of the value of your company. So it's even beyond getting funding and getting off the ground. Because if you have IP, whatever you're looking to do next, whether you're looking to have a large corporation purchase you, which a lot of companies want that as their exit strategy, whether you're looking to do an initial public offering and go public, no matter where you want to go with your business, it's going to open those doors. And I will say, in terms of value, what I love is the story about how Google bought Motorola. So Google bought Motorola for $12.5 billion. 12.5 billion. They took the IP and then they sold it off for 2.91 billion. So if you think about the value of companies nowadays, it's a lot of it is in the IP. And of course, that's a tech area where there's going to be a lot of patents. But even with regard to trademarks, as you know, with Tory Burch, I mean, it's a phenomenal brand and people try and rip it off all the time. And Tory Burch has been able to stop that. They've been able to win awards of money, millions and millions of dollars for, for the fact that somebody actually took something from them that's theirs. So the value is enormous no matter where you are in the life cycle of your company.
Yeah. And that was, just for our company, it was a strategy from day one to protect that. So for any founder on, it's not too early, start right away. And I guess in that vein, we have received an overwhelming number of questions just about, how to seek out the right legal team and advice, especially when you need to be low cost. We're all starting up and money's tight. So how does your office recommend people get started?
Well, I would say a couple of things. First of all, to your point, Molly, about getting started right away, people need to know that if you don't get started right away, you could lose the ability to protect what you have created. So it's not just about doing it so that you have it. It's when it comes to patents and certain other forms of IP, if you don't protect it early, you don't have the right to protect it later. So it's really important to educate yourself first. We have a lot of resources about IP, what it is, how to protect it. I would do that as part of any formation of a company. Just be savvy about what's out there, what the timing looks like. In terms of actually protecting it, first of all, it's not as expensive as you would think. So if you have an idea that you want to patent, and that could be whether it's a consumer good, whether it's electronics, no matter what it is, if you have an idea that you want to patent, you can file a provisional application. And that is something you can do without a lawyer. I always recommend if you can get a lawyer, that's great. And I'll tell you something about that in a minute. But you can file it without a lawyer. If you're small, we're not going to charge you that much. It's going to be like $60 to file it. So this is not a huge, enormous expense. And that buys you a year to think about whether you want to go into the next stage, which is phenomenal because if you're talking to partners, if you're talking to funders, you can say, I have a patent pending. I mean, how great is that? For $60, you can say you have a patent pending. So I will say in terms of thinking about who to hire, I would say, think about whether if you're under-resourced, there are a lot of people who want to help you at no charge. So before you go out and get out your checkbook or do anything like that, look into the free resources. So we have information on our website about lawyers throughout the entire country, law school clinics that can help you with either trademarks or patents. And they will do all the legal work for you for free. And even if you're not under-resourced, you can go to them in the first instance and they may be able to refer you out to someone else. So that's where I would start. I would also say we're in your local libraries. So we're in libraries across the country. You can get a list from our website. where we have trained the library resources on patents and trademarks, on how to do searches. So we're trying to be in your communities and get you the help you need. And I will say, just so I don't forget to say it while we're here, if you're totally lost or you don't know the next step, email me directly. I'll shoot it to somebody in my organization at the USPTO, and they'll help you get to the next stage, or at least connect you with the right people. So my email is director@uspto.gov.
You all heard that, right?
Director@uspto.gov.
It is incredible the investment in resources your office has done, and you're right, being right in the community is critical. Can you tell us a bit more about some of the other resources you have across the United States and how some of them might be different at a startup stage versus at a scaling stage?
So in terms of our resources, we actually have offices throughout the United States. We've got one in the Rocky Mountain area in Colorado, in Detroit, one in the Dallas area, one in Silicon Valley. Liz is here at our headquarters and covers the East Coast. So that's also a really good place to go at any stage, because they see people through their journey. They can connect you with resources. They know the pro bono resources in their region. They know the patent and trademark resource centers, which are what are at the library. So that's a really good place to start. And I will say, I'm really excited that this month we're going to be announcing that we're going to start up a new office in the Southeast region of the United States. And we're going to start these things called community outreach offices, which are going to be smaller in scale, but so we can scale more across the entire country. So we're going to be making that announcement next month, and just growing that footprint across the US.
Wow, you heard it here first, everyone. I'm going to sneak in a couple last questions and then we'll transition to Q&A because I see the Q&A box is on fire today. AI has been on everybody's minds, and it's, I think, creating a bit of concern that as the technology rises, founders don't know how to protect what is uniquely theirs. How is your office thinking about the uncertainty of tech influencing small business owners and their ability to protect an idea or protect the business?
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up because I want to mention two other initiatives. So we talked about women's entrepreneurship, which is really the main, to me, that would be the main entry point, that and just going to our website and getting access to our free resources. But we do have within the Department of Commerce, the National Advisory Council on Innovation and Entrepreneurship, NACI. We also have the Council for Inclusive Innovation. Both of those are chaired by the Secretary of Commerce, who you heard from, my boss. Both of those are chaired by her. I'm a vice chair on CI Squared and a co-chair on NACI. And we are looking at, especially within NACI, but also within the other one, CI Squared, on how can we make sure that as we move forward and make the investment in AI and work with industry on AI, that we are incentivizing and encouraging entrepreneurship, that however we evolve, that it's going to be fair to everyone. So as people may know, the president issued an executive order recently on artificial intelligence. There's a lot in there. It's about safe AI, protecting people with AI, making sure that we can drive the economy and support small businesses. So that's a very key focus. I mean, it's a very long executive order. I could go on and on. I will say that the USPTO under my leadership started an AI emerging technology partnership. So if you're interested in more information, or if you want them to host something that you think can address questions you have, you can email them directly, or again, you can email me and I'll send it over to them. I know we're going to put it in the chat, director@uspto.gov, because we know that people feel uncertainty about this, and we have the resource. We have experts on AI in government. We're working with individual corporations and really want to make sure we shape the future for the country deliberately.
Well, that's incredible, and I think gives a lot of people a lot of comfort that it is top of mind with some of the best minds in our country. You mentioned what's next around community outreach, but what other initiatives can we expect to see from the USPTO?
Oh, there are so many. I will say that we're going to announce a new initiative this week that I probably can't speak to yet, related to giving people their patents more quickly in a certain technology area. We just released one on first-time filers. So if you are a first-time filer and you want to get your patent more quickly, then if you're under-resourced, we're going to help you do it at no charge. So So yeah, so that is huge. We also just did something, which is we created these welcome letters, because it used to be the case that when you would file for a patent, you would get government communications back and forth. Like, here's your receipt of filing, here's rejections that we found. And we just thought that doesn't, we actually found that when women got those rejections, they were less likely to persist. So even if they came to our doors, we ran some statistics recently and found they were less likely to persist, because women want to collaborate. They want, like, that's how we're wired. And so what we did instead is we still have the government forms that we have to send out, but we now have a welcome letter from me and the deputy director. And we've got our pictures on it, and it says, welcome to the USPTO. You can now say you have a patent pending, use our IP identifier, come to we're here to support you on your journey. So really giving everybody the resources from the beginning. So as we move forward, it's hearing from you. So really important that you communicate to us if you think there's more we can be doing, because all of these things we're shaping is based on what we have heard from entrepreneurs, what we have heard in communities that people need in order for them to be more successful. And our goal is to make you more successful.
Well, I love what's in there too, which is a nugget of advice for every founder, which is about listening to your customer, listening to your client, and really serving them in the best way possible, and being open to their feedback so that we can all be better. And I am just so grateful that you have joined us today, that you've shared this advice, and that your office is a fantastic resource to our entire community and women entrepreneurs at large. So thank you for being here. And we are going to shift gears and bring Elizabeth back and go into some Q&A, because there are still just so many individual questions. But again, Director Vidal, we are endlessly grateful for everything you and your team do on a daily basis.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Elizabeth, we have a lot to dive into. I'm
Molly,
sure
you aren't kidding. The chat and the Q&A are on fire. I can't even keep up. They're moving so quickly.
it is on fire. And I guess I want to start with like a really broad question that in some ways, a lot of the different questions that have come in, I think tackle, which is, what is, a lot of small businesses maybe haven't protected something at this point, and now they're seeing, oh, it feels like this bigger brand is kind of doing what I have been doing. So what kind of recourse do small businesses have when they feel like what they're doing is sort of being ripped off, so to speak?
And that's a tough one. And it's a tough position to find yourself in, and it can be very frightening. Hands down, we've talked about it here today, that oftentimes by delaying and protecting your intellectual property, you may have precluded yourself from protecting your intellectual property. Now, it also depends. And this is where a conversation with an intellectual property attorney could be very useful. I know we always hear and see dollar signs when we contemplate taking that step, but it may, in some instances, be necessary. Now, when somebody begins to use a mark in commerce, they in fact have a trademark, because there's something called common law trademarks. There are also state trademarks. I know I saw in one of the questions, somebody referenced a state trademark in Michigan. Obviously, the most valuable, we would argue, trademark is the federally registered trademark, but you may already have rights in the mark that you have begun using, even if you didn't register it. So you may have the opportunity to go after someone who has begun to use that mark, because you may have already built up rights in it. And so while it sounds expensive, if you find yourself in this position, hey, I've got this mark, I've been using it, I would certainly strongly recommend seeking the assistance of an intellectual property attorney.
Amazing. And I guess to ask the converse question, if a small business finds themselves in a situation where they, in fact, are being challenged on their use of a mark, or that they are, having claims brought towards them that they have violated somebody else's IP, what does the recommendation there look like?
My answer would be very, very similar: to seek the assistance, because some of these allegations prove to be phishing expeditions. Someone's just looking to see if they send you a threatening letter, if they can get you to send them some money. Their allegations may be baseless, because again, you may have been using that mark in commerce prior to them. You may have the priority of use. So, but it's not one that you probably want to navigate alone.
That's incredibly helpful. And I think lends itself to this kind of next question about like, at what point in maybe filing a trademark protection and the application is sort of in progress, at what point are you protected, so to speak? Does being in progress help you, hurt you?
Oh, for sure. So again, just the use of that mark in commerce is building up your right. It is building up your ownership of that mark. Now, of course, we strongly encourage, if you are going to be working across the nation and certainly across the globe, to federally register your trademark, because that allows you to avail yourself of so many other opportunities. One, you become listed on the USPTO website when your trademark registers. So that's really putting people on notice. It allows you to use the circle with the R, again, putting people on notice that this is my brand, stay away from it, do not infringe upon my property lines. You do, as you go through the process with the US Patent and Trademark Office, you are going to be required at some point in that conversation to provide evidence of use of your mark. So go ahead and start using it, even if you're in the application process. That's where patents and trademarks differ a little bit, in that we're always hesitant for people to make a public disclosure of their invention prior to protecting it with even the provisional patent application that Director Vidal spoke about.
One thing that, just in working at Tory, we sort of have learned over the years is the idea about the different classifications if you're filing. And so for a small business owner, say I maybe have salons, but someday I want to have, bottled product. What is that process like, and how far out should you be thinking, oh, maybe I want to do this with my business, so should I get ahead and protect myself in a different classification?
That's a great question. And I want to be upfront to say that I am not a trademark expert. I'd love to be calling a friend right now and calling in part of our trademark outreach team. But you're right. You make a good point, Molly, that when filing a trademark registration application, you do have to identify the class of goods and services that you are seeking to use that mark on. Maybe you're going to have apparel. Maybe you are going to have other types of merchandise. You do need to, this goes back to having IP strategy as part of your business strategy. Where do you see your company going? And those different classes can all be filed, if it is the same mark, can all be filed in the same application. So each class is going to cost you an additional fee because you pay per class in a trademark registration application. But you could always amend that application and bring that information in later if your company shifts focus. Doesn't need to all be filed at once together, but it certainly could.
I love that headline, that your IP should be part of your business strategy. If anyone had one takeaway today, it certainly should be that.
I wish I was wearing the t-shirt.
Right? You can do some protection on that. Robin here in the Q&A box asked a question that I think applies to a lot of different people. So Robin is a cut flower grower, does floral design, and has lots of different clients. And I guess is generally asking about protecting design work contractually or otherwise. And I think a lot of founders here are sort of creators in that way. They grow, they create, they design. So how do some of the things that are less product focused, but more of a service that has that creativity think about their IP?
So certainly this is one where the blend between trademarks and copyrights can get confusing. Most design work would be protected by a copyright. You're creating that artistic expression in a fixed intangible medium. Now, with that said, of course, I don't want to forget our lovely friends, the design patent, but that's something with a greater permanence. That's protecting that ornamental appearance of an article of manufacture. Keep in mind, with the copyrighted work, copyrights are what we call self-authenticating. By merely placing that creative expression in that fixed intangible medium, one has that copyright. But if you do want to avail yourself of those additional opportunities, this is where that federally registered, that copyright through the U.S. Copyright Office becomes very, very relevant. And I did see a number of copyright questions in the Q&A, particularly regarding where you have a lot of creativity going and the cost. I will say the cost of copyrights is certainly less than patents or trademarks. And more often than not, creatives file their own copyright applications without the use of an intellectual property professional. So it does, to allay any fears of cost, while there is still a cost involved, it is a lesser cost than patents and trademarks. And keep in mind too, a substantial amount, almost 90% of trademark applications are filed pro se, meaning without the assistance of an attorney.
I'm going to sneak in one more question. I know we're close on time, but we see this a lot with founders. Does having a domain, like a web domain, cover you from an IP perspective? I think a lot of folks feel like, I got the website, so shouldn't I be set?
No, they're two very, very different things. The domain is distinctly different. It does not serve as a trademark. Certainly it's a landing place for people to come and find you and to find out about your business and your products or services. It is not your trademark.
All right. Well, it feels like we need a part 2. There are so many great questions. We are just so appreciative of your time, the director's time, and the entire Department of Commerce and USPTO offices for supporting our community with everything intellectual property, and as well as the ongoing commitment you all have to supporting women entrepreneurs.
Of course.
I would like to thank every single founder who has tuned in today. You all are incredibly valued members of our community. We are so grateful.